Welcome to the Bridal Journey podcast. This season is sponsored by Charlotte. Visit bycharlotte.com.au and enter the code BRIDAL at checkout for 15% off store-wide. Now let's dive into this episode. Welcome to the Bridal Journey podcast. Today we are excited to have Kat Spanti with us. Kat is a bride with a massive following on Instagram and TikTok, and she recently launched Keep in Touch, a new platform for styling, creative and cultural direction. Welcome, Kat.
Hi, Andy. How are you?
Good. Can you give us a quick introduction?
Yeah, so I'm Kat. I feel like you took the words out of my mouth. I'm getting married in next month, which is crazy to say. I do content, and then we've got some exciting stuff coming up, which I will be launching around my wedding. So we launched with like services, and then we're moving into the end goal is product, which the business kind of came about just through my experience of being a bride and there not being what I needed there to be. So yeah, I'm excited to be here today. Thank you so much for having me.
So you're launching the product around about the time you're getting married.
Yeah.
Because all eyes will be on your wedding, I think.
It was more so, I guess the product side of the business came about because I just couldn't find what I was looking for. I've got a bridesman in my bridal party. So, you know, when you're thinking about gifts for your bridal party, when you're thinking about like what are they wearing on the morning of, things like that, there was nothing gender neutral on the market. You know, you look on Etsy, you look on, you know, wherever you're looking, it's like silk pieces and beautiful things, and it's very, very girly, very like bridal focused, and nothing that just felt like effortless and chic. I feel like there was a massive gap in the market. So I started creating some stuff for my own bridal party, and then I was like, hey, I think there is a market for this stuff. And I get inundated all the time on Instagram and TikTok. What am I doing for pajamas? What am I doing for gifts? Those kinds of things. And trust me, I've been looking, but nothing was hitting the mark.
Cool.
So yeah,
That's
excited.
the question that we actually often get on the bridal journey is, can you recommend bridesmaid gifts? Can you recommend? And I think it's really cool that you've got a bridesman.
Yeah.
So like a good guy friend that you've asked to be on your bridal team.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah, bridesman. And that's the thing, like I feel like a lot of people, it shouldn't be like, I get this question all the time, like non-traditional things you're doing or incorporating in your wedding. And I feel like that shouldn't be a non-traditional thing, that like I have a bridesman as part of my bridal party, but unfortunately some people still look at it like that. And I feel like it's really represented, you know, within the market, unfortunately, that there really isn't anything gender neutral, which is really disappointing. Like we're in 2024, there should be gender neutral items out there and gifts out there. So yeah, we've kind of like, that's what I've sort of created. And then along the way and along the journey, I was showing friends and they were like, yeah, like I would buy this stuff.
So by the time this podcast is probably out, will be around about the time that you'll be launching.
Yes, hopefully, fingers crossed.
Head
suppliers.
over to Kat's TikTok or Instagram, Kat Spanti, and you might find
hopefully
what she's launched. So very exciting. Speaking of, I really love the idea that you've got a best, what are we calling him? Best man?
Bridesman.
Bridesman.
Yeah.
You've got a bridesman, and I did see on your TikTok you did a video on like non-traditional things we're doing at our wedding. Now you're getting married in Europe. Tell me about some other things that are non-traditional things that you're doing at your wedding.
Everything. I feel like our wedding is very non-traditional. I mean, it's not a real wedding as well. Like I think this is what people forget, that when you have a destination wedding, it's harder to get legally married. So we are doing we have to do the civil ceremony here in Australia. So the whole ceremony is a symbolic ceremony. It's very different. We're having quite a small wedding. My partner, Josh, he was the one that wanted like the big wedding. If it was up to me, I would have eloped. I would have spent all the money on like a beautiful Chanel tweed white suit and just done it kind of like at the registry and have it all done. So our compromise was just like a small guest list. So we are having quite a small amount of people coming over with us. It's about 65 to 70 people. Non-traditional things that we're doing all one table. So it's going to feel really like family style, Italian, European. I think something that is really big for Josh and I is, you know, when you go to a wedding and you feel like you're just watching the couple and, you know, you kind of feel like almost removed from what's going on. That is like the opposite of how we want guests to feel at our wedding. We want them to feel like they're part of it. We don't want them to just feel like they're watching us, you know, have this day. So it's really important to us that guests feel the love and they feel involved, as well as the fact that they're traveling so far to be there for us. And we appreciate that, obviously, beyond words. We know how lucky we are. So we're doing everything we can for it to feel really experiential. So it's going to be really progressive. It starts kind of like in one garden, then goes to another. Then we have one long table. I'm not doing like formal speeches, like I said, family style, like someone picks up a little wine glass and like taps it for speeches. I guess what else are we doing that's non-traditional?
Are you having like a ceremony? Because you said that you're getting you can't do all the ceremonial type thing.
It's a symbolic ceremony.
So you're still going to do that kind of thing?
We'll still do the ceremony, because my dad, like he's typical like Italian dad, wants to walk me down the aisle. Him and Josh are the reason, essentially. This big wedding is happening. Josh really wanted to see me walk down the aisle, and my dad obviously really wanted to walk me down the aisle. So we'll be doing that, which will obviously be really, really special. But it's more like, it's a symbolic ceremony. I mean, our, what do they call them? Celebrant. She's Italian. So we're yet to see, and this is something you'll learn with destination weddings, is like you plan to be organised, but like the Italians, unless your wedding's in 2 weeks, they're like, all good, like we'll chat to you in 2 months' time, you know? So we still haven't, and the wedding's next month, we still haven't had that call with the celebrant yet to be like, cool, this is what we're going through and things like that. So, we'll just take it as it comes.
Yeah, it's a bit like that, I think. And
Off
in
the
terms
cuff.
of, so you've got a planner based in Australia.
Yeah, based in Australia.
So you're working with Britt from Nuptial Collective.
Yeah.
So have you mainly booked suppliers from over there, or tell me about like who you've booked and how you went about that whole planning process?
It's a little bit of both. I think the planning process was interesting because I found the venue, I was just stalking on Instagram, and the venue, it actually held a Max Mara fashion show because it's not like a traditional wedding venue. And so I stalked this venue and I like harassed them being like, can I meet you? Like I'm going to be in Rome, because we went to Rome last year to like finalize destinations. And I basically stalked them and went over and met them. And luckily
whereabouts is it, sorry?
Oh, can I say? Oh, because this will be out after, right?
Well, July, like we're thinking about late July, couple more. July. Oh, might be a bit early.
What else can I say? It's in a main city.
Can you tell us about? Oh, it's in a main city.
It's in a main city.
So that's about as far as we can go with that. That's my Easter egg.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's my Easter egg.
Okay.
So I went
Rome?
there.
Is that a
maybe? We'll have to wait and see.
So you've been to the venue.
Yes. I've been to the venue. I had to check that the venue was like, there's multiple things you have to check. Like, I was doing things like where are the toilets, can guests walk in heels on the floor and grass and things like that. Yeah. There's so many things you have to think about with a venue. And we've got a few elderly coming, so it needed to be like quite, what's the word? Like not too many stairs,
which is hard,
which is really tricky in Europe and in Italy. So it passed the test, whatever, went over there. Met them. I ended up scheduling like our tastings with different caterers. I met heaps of suppliers.
Wow, so you actually went
there.
A lot of brides to be, or couples, should I say, don't actually get to ever see probably the venue before they even book it. Yeah,
that would give me so much anxiety.
Yeah, so you went there, you tested catering.
Well, because food's really important for us. So that was like the number one thing. We wanted it to be, and that's the reason why you get married overseas, right? It's like, you want a beautiful venue and you have to obviously pick what's important to you and your partner. But for us, like we love dining, we love eating out, food and beverage experience.
So that was
really
a high
important
thing on your priority list.
Definitely.
Number one.
And the only way, you can't see that from photos. You have to physically go and try the food. I know, terrible job. But yeah, we went and did that. And then I kind of just met with a lot of the suppliers and sort of like locked them all there, because they don't reply to your emails. They don't reply to your calls.
Yeah, and there's a bit of a language barrier probably perhaps with some of them as well.
Language barrier, time zone barrier as well, they're waking up as you're going to sleep. So,
and as you said, they're not like worrying about your wedding till 2 weeks
they couldn't care less. So that's why I had to go in person, and I actually brought my dad along with me because he speaks very fluent Italian.
Great.
And they definitely took him more seriously than they took me.
Yeah,
like, it's just some girl like from Australia. So I locked in all of the key suppliers, so venue, food and beverage, caterers, and like furniture. So the people who would be bringing in the furniture, because we have to bring everything in with our venue.
So all the important things you need, they're on the ground for the moment,
like
the time being. Yeah.
Like what would you call those? Like the
essentials?
The essentials. Exactly, the essentials. And then I actually met with Italian wedding planners while I was over there as well. Yeah. None of them got my vision. Like no one, I think when they found out where the venue was, they're envisioning this massive like big orchestrated event, and that's just the opposite of what I wanted. I wanted it to feel very organic. I wanted it to feel not overly styled, and even with the...
So they might have been I think like what I post from weddings in Europe that might be like, you know, people from on the ground, they've got like the chandeliers hanging from the thing, and so you wanted something a bit more like you're going to like a lunch or dinner in Italy with your friends on vacation type feel.
I just didn't want anything OTT.
Theatrical.
Because it doesn't feel like us.
And you're a little bit more laid back. Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted something effortless. I obviously still want it all to look really beautiful, but you know, it doesn't interest me of having like a runway down the aisle, you know, like there were Italians who were pitching me like me being higher than everybody else is like literally a runway show. And personally, like I couldn't think of anything worse. Like I'm shitting myself about walking down the aisle.
Yeah.
And like that, I was just like, no, they just don't get it. And like OTT, like chandeliers dropping from the ceiling, and the venue is so beautiful that you don't need to do much.
Which is a very great tip.
Yes.
I think is if you're picking a venue that is beautiful and speaks for itself, you actually don't need to bring in much styling.
No.
I think people can do that and get carried. As you said, you met with these Italian wedding planners. You can sometimes overboard the venue when it doesn't need, it can speak for itself.
Yeah, I think you can easily get carried away. I think if you don't know what you want, it's very easy to get kind of just, you know, you become a yes man. And it's also tricky when you're talking to suppliers, you're working with a wedding planner. Sometimes they will recommend things that they feel is right for you, and you might not agree, but you feel pressure to say yes in that moment.
Yeah.
And I think that's really tricky. And it's another reason why I created Keep in Touch with the content curation side of things and creative direction, because a lot of people, I've had so many conversations with brides where they get to the end of their day and they're like, you know, I used a planner, I spent all this money, but it didn't end up looking the way that I wanted it to look.
Yeah, or reflecting who you are as a couple, right?
They're like, you know, I regret so many things in the planning process because I wasn't able to communicate properly with my, and it's no one's fault. Like, you know, it's not the supplier's fault. It's just a breakdown of communication. And a lot of people don't know, like we're obviously in PR and marketing background. We know how to communicate with people, suppliers, things like that. The general, you know, everyday person, they don't know how to communicate efficiently and get the results that they want, especially when something is so stylistically driven. And I think people get caught up, like, you know, as you were saying with the bridal journey, it's such a great source of inspiration, but it can be really like you get caught up in what other people are doing, and it can really kind of play with your mental and your decision making as a bride.
So yeah, I totally agree with that. It's very hard. I found that with my own wedding, looking at Instagram and all the weddings that I had posted, I just couldn't like get a clear cut vision thing of what I wanted. And I suppose, so you've hired Brit, and then going back to communicating your vision with her, who is an Australian wedding planner. How did you did you create a mood board? Did you tell her and can you give us any semi-idea? Like, I know that you wanted it to kind of reflect like this beautiful Italian dinner and you've got the long table, but how did you go about that whole you know, with your background in styling, that whole process of organising your wedding in that kind of way with the planner?
So I actually started with a concept doc that, it's so funny because obviously it's not just you that is planning this wedding, it's also your partner. And I think a lot of brides sometimes forget that. And with Josh, my partner, he's a writer and he's a creative. So he's like quite involved, sometimes too involved. But I put together a concept doc for him to start with, because I was like, I have these like 3 main ideas in terms of like where we're going with florals and where we're going with styling and just like how food's going to be plated and things like that. So I put together a concept doc with 3 different concepts, 3 different moods, different mood boards, things like that, to give him an idea. And I kind of like described, you know, the setting and how it would be placed and things like that and the vibe. And that's how we kind of landed on the feel.
And explain to me the concept doc for people that might not know.
Concept doc is
visuals, words, so just like a bit of like a mood board page document.
Like a concept overview.
So you might have done like Italian themed
Yeah, I basically
blah,
came
blah,
up.
blah. And then it had like images. And then the next one might have been like all white or something.
Yeah,
with like
yeah,
white,
yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
like bows or white pearls or whatever have you on the next page. And then the third one was a different theme, I'd assume.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
That's a great way to kind of narrow it down.
Different concepts. I kind of came up with different themes for each different concept. I put in like even down to the detail of like dress code. So what, and gave an idea of like how we envision guests to look and like what the mood and feel would be like there, which is really similar to what I do for clients with their creative direction and their concept curation. And then he picked his favorite and we both kind of like landed on our favorite concept, and that became our style guide essentially. And then
So you went back to that every time you were kind of introducing something new, or it kind of, that kind of grounded you back to what, because you can get, as you say, get carried away. So I guess it's something that you then went back to every time you're doing some little step in your planning to be like, no, let's like rein it back.
Yeah.
Does this reflect our concept and what we kind of want?
It's exactly that. Yeah. It basically acted as direction for every supplier that we worked with. So like I said, I'd spoken to wedding planners over there. They didn't get it. And then I'd worked with Brit for our engagement. And she was great to work with. And I basically gave her that doc and I was like, this is kind of where we're headed. These are all of the elements I've already locked in. I speak Italian, so do my family. Like if there's any language barrier there, like I'm more than happy to assist. And I would say like we're pretty involved in the planning process. So yeah, that's kind of like where we started. And yeah.
I have a question for you. If you and your dad can speak Italian, you'd already been to the venue, you'd already locked in some suppliers, why was there any need to bring in a planner to help you?
Time.
Like what was she kind of bringing to the table that you weren't?
Purely time.
Okay.
I just like there was no way that I could have the time to plan.
Is it just in terms of like bump in and
everything
communicating
on the day
with
for sure on
yeah.
the day, like on the day coordination, that is like, you speak to brides all the time and they were like, my wedding planner was a godsend. But I think in the lead up there's just so many logistics with an overseas wedding that I didn't have the time or the capacity, especially with like, launching my new business and doing everything else. And there was no way that I had the time to do everything. And I knew that, look, I probably could have done it, but I knew that it wouldn't be done to my 100%, like that level that I would have wanted it. And then I think there would have been regret. So I was like, you know what? And even my partner, Josh, he was like, there's no way you're going to have time to do all this yourself. He's like, I don't want you doing all this yourself.
Yeah.
Let's get help. And Brit was amazing because we're kind of like working together. Because obviously I have my background in styling and creative direction and concepts and all of that. So it's been a really collaborative process, which has been really nice because it's like, it's also someone to sort of like use as a soundboard.
Yeah, bounce back ideas.
And bounce back and sometimes they'll rein me in and vice versa. So yeah, for me it was definitely a time thing. And I think people underestimate how much work, effort and logistics go into destination weddings.
I think people underestimate just how much goes in. Like, we have worked on events together and it is a beast just doing one event. At the end and the end result, people don't realize how much back end effort. And I think that's something that brides don't realize is when they're planning their own wedding or when they attend weddings, for instance, they see this end result, they see it like it's all run smoothly, what have you, but they don't actually realize the back end, the countless emails, organising like bump in, just little things like who's collecting the florals the next day because you can't leave the waste at the venue sometimes. Just all those like little things that you don't realise when you're attending these kind of events. If you're having a marquee wedding, you have to wash the dishes and return them to the company. People don't realise that is a friend of mine, she had a marquee wedding, didn't realise that they got the plates and the cutlery in from
you
a
telling me
decor.
this story. Yeah.
They got the plates and the cutlery in from a decor service, totally didn't even think that the next day it all had to be washed and returned back to the company. So she and her
Could you imagine?
Bridesmaids and groomsmen, they'd been up all night, partied till like 3 or something in the morning of the wedding, ended up on the beach, whatever, and we're like, so they had to like sit in a line with tubs and the next day and wash all the cutlery and plates and box them up and return them. So I think a lot of people don't realise these little things.
It adds up.
That you don't think about when you're planning a wedding or when you're attending a wedding that,
it adds
all these
up.
hidden things that like take a lot of extra time. So I would like to know, because you're planning a wedding in Europe, has there been any surprising things or any bumps in the roads with planning, or any tips and advice that you can give brides who are perhaps planning a wedding overseas that you didn't, realize till you were planning?
Yeah.
Planning
I think
yourself.
people always ask me this question. I think my two main points are logistics and expectations. I think logistics is a massive one that I myself underestimated, and I'd say that I'm pretty good forward planner and like very risk adverse in anything that I do, especially with work. But logistics, you don't understand until you're in that predicament. Like even with certain things, and obviously because we have an Australian wedding planner, it'd be a little different if we had an overseas wedding planner. But things like menus, place cards, things like that, we have to get that all printed and bring it over with us. Things like fans, parasols.
So what do you do with that? Like, are you bringing it in a suitcase?
Yeah, I have to pack. I have a whole separate
So you're
suitcase.
paying extra weight for the flights?
Yes.
Just for all that stuff?
Just for all that stuff. I've got a whole separate
And I
suitcase.
hope that your suitcase, are you getting a little air tag put on
Yes,
that?
of course. Well, we're actually splitting some of the stuff up with like family members. And I told everyone like 6 months earlier.
Please bring it.
I was like, I literally made a little notes thing, and I like collaborated with like my parents, Josh's parents, like a list that we need to split things up. Just for it to like
5
be
fans
equally.
for grandma.
Yes, exactly. We're splitting
2
up
fans for
couple
Josh's
parasols for my father-in-law. Seriously, like that's you got to do what you got to do.
Because what do? You're not printing it there, are you?
Well, we could,
especially if you're in a more regional, remote area.
Nah, you have to bring everything with you, and we could have it delivered somewhere. But again, and I can say this,
Just don't want to trust the process of
I'm
that.
an Italian, and I can say this. You can't trust the Europeans. Genuinely. And also, even my time in working with hotels, like even if you get something delivered
might
to the
not
hotel,
get delivered. Especially
things
overseas,
get lost.
the
Things
postage,
get lost.
it's too much.
Front desk managers, they don't care about like your fans.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, did it come? Did it not? I don't know.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm like, best way to do it is to physically carry it over. But there are just little things that you don't think about, like even like welcome signs. Like we really wanted to do a welcome sign, but because we can't physically go to the venue and like measure the pillars. And yes, we could ask, the people who own the villa to measure the pillars, but then we'd have to carry this massive welcome sign over.
Do you mean the pillars to like maybe do like a linen?
Yeah, to like drape
welcome
something.
sign, right.
Yeah. But again, how heavy is that going to be?
Yeah. You're folding it up. Is it going to be crinkled in the
You've
suitcase?
got to steam it. Like there's a whole process.
Yeah.
So I was like, fuck it. So we ended up doing like little, sorry, I swore then. We ended up doing little like welcome maps.
Yeah.
Which like you get handed, because it's like I said, it's a villa, and there's a massive driveway that you kind of have to walk up, and it's like 3-acre property. And it's a progressive event. So we're doing these little maps where it kind of tells you where everything is on the maps, and then it's got like a little welcome on the back.
Yeah.
So you just have to be inventive.
Like, you know what? Like there doesn't need to be a welcome sign. Everyone's flown over to your wedding. I think that the welcome sign's a bit redundant unless you're having like something cool and quirky.
Totally. But it
is
is that photo moment. It's that photo moment that you think of and you see on Instagram. And that kind of like aligns with that second point about expectations is you just have to rewire expectations. Like, you see all those beautiful Instagrammable Pinterest photos, and sometimes you have to realize like, all right, well, I can't have a welcome sign. So there goes that photo and that photo moment. You know what I mean?
But I guess that's something to do with like things that you feel like you've got to have.
Totally.
You don't even need to have a cake. You actually don't need anything.
Necessary.
And to be honest, like when's the last time you went to a wedding? Remember what their seating plan looked like?
Oh, I do because I work in the industry, so I always remember seating plan. But it's like you're right. The general person
they're just going there, and as you said, to like enjoy the food and have a great time and have some nice drinks.
Your guests don't care, and that's another thing with expectations. I think having a destination wedding, like we're so lucky here to work with Australian suppliers who are so creative and so ahead of the game in terms of styling and things like that. Europeans, they're not that way inclined. So even with like plates that we're able to source and things that we're able to source, it's just not the same, and it's not going to land the same. So I think it's actually been a really good thing, because my expectations are, I'm not focusing on how everything looks. I'm focusing on how it actually feels like. And that's been the best part of having a destination wedding, is that the focus and the emphasis really is on the time that you're having and being present, and the fact that all of your loved ones, it's literally a once in a lifetime event, that every person that you love and care for in the whole entire world are in this place, all at the same time overseas having the best time of your life. Like that's probably never going to happen again. And that's been a really nice part of the destination wedding process is I've just let go of how things look. I've let go of like, okay, well, you know what? Like if a waiter isn't dressed a certain way or, maybe it takes a little longer to make a drink or food or whatever, it doesn't matter. Like it's actually just not important. It's all about how you feel on the day, how your partner feels and how your guests feel.
I agree. And some of the brides that we've interviewed on the podcast, I think the most amazing weddings have been when things have gone terribly wrong and they have just like Nadia Fairfax, and I'll always bring this up in podcast episodes, but she said they'd planned an outdoor garden wedding and it was honestly the worst weather in Sydney that day and it was raining.
But you can't control
and she said, I just brought myself into a room by myself. Like she said, I breathed, I regrouped.
I love that.
They brought everybody into a room because it was pouring outside. She said there was no plan B. They weren't moving the tables in.
See, that's crazy to me.
Yeah.
No plan B is crazy.
I know, which you should always have.
Always have
But she
plan
brought
B.
them into a room and she just like said, if I set the tone, like if I'm upset by this or I'm showing that it's like crumbling or worrying me, then the guests are going to feel that. So she said, we brought everybody into a room. I brought myself into a separate room, breathe, thought I need to set the tone. And she said she interviewed her dad and made it really funny and everyone was laughing. And then she just said the rain stopped and they were able to go out to the garden to have their wedding. Another bride who got married in Europe, she said it couldn't have been worse wedding. She said her dad said he saw a tree get struck down by a thunder on the way to see her getting ready that morning. She said, that's not what I need to hear, Dad.
I'm superstitious. Like that would freak me out.
This was Lauren Burns. I don't know if you know.
Oh, yes. She had, her wedding looked
but the
beautiful.
same thing, yeah. And I just think like what I have really learned from interviewing people is exactly what you just said then is it's just how people feel. Like you don't, all those things are out of your control. It rained terribly on my wedding day as well. You just my partner forgot to give the driver our address, so it was like, and I'm always like half an hour early.
Don't get me started with transporting
things
Europe.
like that.
Yeah. Oh god.
So it's just all those things are out of your control. So you just need to go there and enjoy. You just have to be set present. The tone for your guests and just enjoy it.
And that's the thing with destination weddings is even the fact that the suppliers take so long. I'm talking like months to get back to you on things, and even then the answers are really uncertain because it's broken English and you don't really know
if they're going to pull through with the deal. But they're always going to pull through with the deal, aren't they?
But even if they don't execute it to the way that you would have liked it to be, who cares? Like it actually doesn't matter. People are where we're getting married, obviously it's peak summer and people are talking about, what if it's too hot and this and that? And I'm like, I can't control the weather. We've got a plan B. Like we'll move it indoors if it's way too hot or if it rains or whatever. But like it's out of my control. So why am I wasting time worrying about things that are out of my control?
Exactly. And now with the destination wedding, are you having any other events like either recovery, welcome dinner? What else are you doing for it?
Yeah, we're doing so Josh is having his bucks in Mykonos. He's doing like 5 days in Mykonos. So my bridal party got wind of that and they were like, there's no way we're not doing something. So they're taking me somewhere for a few days. I don't know
you don't
where.
know?
I don't know where.
Oh, that's so exciting.
We'll see. And they've put together like a little like lookbook and things like that. For me, like each day, like where we're going, whatever, which is so much fun.
That is so fun.
Yeah, it's really fun. And then
you've got a good group of friends.
I do.
They're
amazing. They're amazing. And then I've got my like bridal shower hens with everybody that's coming to the wedding. And then 2 days later is our welcome party, and we're doing the welcome party 2 days before the wedding because, again, we want guests to enjoy themselves and not have to worry about a hangover the next day.
Which is a problem.
Yes, it is. It's a massive
Everyone always
problem.
gets too drunk at the welcome party.
Exactly.
They're a bit too excited and then everyone's too hungover the next day.
And it's like it's humid, like drinks hit you harder, I think, when you're overseas
and then they just relax in between and then kick back up again. I like that idea.
Yeah.
Because most people do the welcome dinner
I hate that.
the day before.
Nah, I've been to so many weddings and it's like also you're exhausted because there's so much social interaction. So for me.
And then here we are all again, 12 hours later.
No. We want people to be feeling fresh, like they want to be there, Yeah, so we did the welcome party 2 days before, then we'll do the wedding. So that's like 3 events, and the wedding, so it starts a bit later with the ceremony because it's quite hot. So wedding ceremony will be about like 4:35, and then we'll move into like aperitivo hour. Then we've got dinner, and then we move into the villa to do like a rave cave after party, which will go until the morning. So we're not doing a recovery because like I feel like whenever I go to weddings that have the welcome, the wedding, the recovery, by the recovery, you're done with socializing. You're hungover, you're tired.
They never look fun.
You're just like, you're over it. And you have to be there. Like it's like a forced, you know, like, yeah, it's like cute to like debrief and things like that. But I think when people are traveling so far, like they've got other places to be after that. Like people have the rest of their trip, you know? I said to Josh, I was like, we can't be selfish with like, you know, making like 4 mandatory events over that week of time. And I think you know, you want to leave people wanting more rather than like,
I love that.
you know, kind of just exhausting everybody. So yeah, we've got a few events, which is nice. It's like the right amount. And again, I want everyone to know each other by like come the wedding day, you know, that's the whole part of having one long table is, you know, you want everyone to have known each other, had a few laughs from a few of the other events and, you know, just enjoy themselves and get to know each other and everyone be connected.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Next one.
Yes.
Very important. This is a question people wanted to know from you when I put it out on our Instagram stories. And I know you can't tell us really, but tell me about the dress.
Yes.
You did not get it from Australia.
No.
Tell me about the whole process.
No. Dress process was probably the trickiest part of the whole thing. I think it is for a lot of girls. I really struggled finding something here in Australia that kind of hit my brief.
And reflected who you are.
Yeah, I think again, like going back to the venue, I didn't want something that felt OTT. I wanted it to feel like an extension of my surroundings. I didn't want to be like the main focal point. I wanted it to just be an extension of what was happening around me. Obviously the heat is a massive factor. So I didn't want, you know, a 5-meter train and a big skirt and things like that. I will say that, you know, it was all very fate had a play in the way that it kind of worked out. I ended up going on a brand trip in November and I started looking. I was like, you know what? I'll just look at some of like the key designers, Osta de la Renta, Ali Saab, see if they've got any appointments. You know, I don't know how they did. It must have been cancellations because you know these places, they book out months in advance. And just being over there and trying on different materials, different shapes, different sizes really helped me realize like the quality that I wanted from my dress. I think with a lot of those like big name designers, you assume that because you're paying such a massive price for them that the quality is going to be amazing, but it's actually not. So that process was really eye-opening. And then, yeah, I stumbled upon – it's so funny because I look back on my Pinterest and like I'm talking like maybe like 6 years ago, I've got dresses pinned from this designer that I didn't even realize. Like I didn't even put 2 and 2 together. But yeah, I wasn't even supposed to have like a fitting in there, but the lady like let me and she took me around the corner to this like this was in Paris down this like laneway and I was like, oh, I'm getting taken. Like this is what's happening because there was like rubbish bins and all this stuff. And she led me into their showroom, which was crazy. She turned on all the lights. It was incredible. They had like some of their Met Gala gowns like lining up and she took my measurements first, which is a really interesting approach. A lot of designers just like get you in dresses and clamp you up. She took my measurements first and then she chose dresses that she thought worked for my measurements, which again, the approach was really amazing. And then, yeah, I ended up trying on a gown that was actually black and it was a gown and that was the shape and the style that I wanted. And I was like, can I make this in white or can we customize it or whatever? She was like, no, you won't be able to. Like there's this whole approval process, whatever. Flew back to Australia, couldn't get that out of my head. She emailed me one day, it was just after Christmas and said, can you send me a list of all this information about your wedding? Where is it? Send me your mood board. Who's your partner? This, that. And we'll see if we can make these changes for you and get this approved. I was like, okay, this is weird, but whatever. Sent off all the details. And this was January. And keep in mind, I was getting married in August. So I still hadn't locked in a dress, right? And that's like 7 months out. And then it was like Jan, like 5th or something, it got approved. And that was it. And like I paid for this dress that, you know, I hadn't even tried on yet, you know, and like it was just the craziest. And it's not a small amount of money either. And that was the process. And in terms of the style, it's not what I thought I was going to be wearing. It's very classic, but with a sprinkle of me. It's a very, very classic. Like I think as soon as you see it, you'll know which designer it is. But it's very, very classic. It's very light. It doesn't really feel like a wedding dress, which I love about it. It feels more like a gown as opposed to wearing, you know, this big, heavy wedding dress. And yeah, it's not what I thought I would be in, but now looking at it, I'm like, no, it makes sense. It makes sense for me.
That sounds like the wildest journey to wedding dress.
It was crazy. And
Never
even,
heard of that.
Even my parents, like they could see that I was getting, you know, visibly stressed, obviously, because designers tell you all the time, you need to leave at least 12 months to have your dress made. And my dad said to me one day, he's like you need to get a dress made. Like you just need to pick something now. Like you need to figure this out because I'm really worried that you're going to get really stressed out about this situation because we're literally 7 months out from your wedding.
Now, did they send you the dress or are you getting it sent straight to the venue?
So the original plan was that I was going to fly to Paris on my way through and do the alterations in August, but Europe closes down. Pretty much the whole of Europe closes down in August and they have the Olympics on in Paris. So I got a phone call maybe a month ago saying that they were going to put on a special alterations person for the week that I'm there and we'll just work to get it done and finish it off. And then I got a call from, you know, the girl who I'd first met in Paris and she said that this alterations person had stuffed up a few of their other gowns and she doesn't trust that she'll be able to execute the dress. So she's like, what do you want to do? Like, can you come here earlier? And I was like, no, I can't. Like, I can't change my flights. Like, it's too tricky. So we ended up shipping it over here. And getting it finished off here, which I've got it now, thank goodness. So we're all good, but it was a little bit rocky then. And like I said, it's the same with like planning anything, destination, whatever. Things go awry, you know, like things are out of your control. Like how could I have controlled that atelier wasn't up to scratch, you know? Like it's just got to roll with the punches, I think.
And how are you transporting it?
I'm carrying it over.
Putting it above?
I'm carrying it on with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you double wrapping it?
Yes, you freaked me out with that. Yes, I'm going to like triple wrap it now.
Yeah, get it wrapped.
I've got a few dresses.
Even with the suit bag or whatever, maybe get the glad wrap over the top of that. You know how you can get it like redone
but won't that crush it?
Maybe, I don't know. It just depends what the dress is like.
I'm going to do a few dress bags. Well, I've got a few dresses. So I've got like my welcome party gown, which is like caged. So that has to be hung.
Will they hang it on the plane?
I hope so. I really hope so.
Everyone's surely. Like, you got to be
I'm just
this
being
is my
delusional.
wedding.
I'm being delusional about it. I'm manifesting that it'll be fine. So funny. I was talking to someone the other day and he was being such a dad. He was like, well, you know, what if they don't? I've had people who go in first class and, you know, they still weigh their baggage and this and that. And I was like, I'm not subscribing to that negativity. Like, it'll be fine. She'll be fine.
Nah,
worst comes
you
to
might
worst,
be on
I
TikTok.
lie it on
this
me.
Crazy bride.
Did you see the TikTok?
It's my wedding day.
Did you see the TikTok of the female pilot who ended up putting someone's wedding dress in the cockpit and like buckled it up because she was a female pilot and she was like, let me take that. I'll put it in the cockpit. So it's like there is faith in humanity.
You'll be right.
We'll be fine. She'll be fine.
You'll be fine. Just, you know.
Yeah, airport dad it through the airport. We'll be fine.
All right, we've got a few listener questions that we'll get through really quick. So a bit of short fire questions.
I waffle, sorry.
A lot were about the dress, so we can skip over them. Skincare prep.
Skincare prep, I have had very problematic skin. I speak about it all the time on social. So I've been very strict DMK. I work with the girls at Chakra Skin in Baldwin and they have given me like a very strict regime. So we've been doing like enzymes, we've been doing bio-repels. We're going to do a laser genesis just before I leave. So I've been very, very strict on DMK.
Great. How do you find the coolest outfits for your travels?
That's a hard question. I just do a lot of research. And this is the thing with a lot of my stylistic clients that I've been working with. I got so many Lake Como brides for July. I just do a lot of research. Like I'm just everywhere. Pinterest,
bookmark,
everything.
TikTok.
And like Depop even. Like I really trawl through Depop. There are some really cool vintage.
Oh, I love that idea.
Like smaller designers on Depop that I find, even like Vestiaire and The Real, you find some really cool stuff.
Yeah, love it. Because I saw your TikTok and you did one about the companies. I can never say
curated. Yeah.
I love
the
it how
grey
you say
market.
it.
Grey market.
Yes.
That's another thing. If you're on a budget, you can always find. That's like my personal Olympics.
Curated,
Curated.
which is spelled CETT.
Satire. Some people call it satire.
CETTIRE. Cool.
Yeah. Satire, curated, Italist, all of the grey market. That's where you get the best brands for the best prices.
Great. All right. Is the myth true? Is it less dollars to get married in Europe?
God, no. No, it is not. Don't believe everything you hear.
What percentage of invitees are attending?
Oh, I'd say like 90%.
Great.
Yeah.
All right. That's it.
That's it.
So
We're done.
thank you. That was
you.
awesome. And we can't wait to see your wedding. And we'll have to get you on the podcast to hear all about post-wedding.
After any disasters.
Yeah. We can't wait. I'm sure
Amazing.
you're going to be looking amazing and it'll be great.
Thanks.
Thanks, Kat.
Bye.